Okay, guys, I don't mean this as like a joke. We survived 2020, which a lot of people that I like and respect didn't. And I think like instead of concentrating on the horribleness that was last year, we could try to find some gems to talk about because there were a few good things of 2020. Very few, very few. I think maybe if we did a top 5, each of us, we could get those very few things. In fact, especially if there was crossover between our top 5s at some point, I think we would hit it right on the head. What do you guys think?
What a novel idea, Casey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you suggesting that we share our picks for the best horror releases of 2020, Casey?
I guess. I didn't want to say it like that and sound like a dick.
Oh, well, guys, I have a microphone right here. And look, guys, we're already recording.
We are. As well. The red button is blinking on my microphone. Well, not blinking.
What else are we going to do at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning?
Nothing.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Yeah. All right. Let's recap the year of shit right now.
All right. Well, as Casey was alluding to, last year was miserable, too miserable. This podcast is the only thing that should be miserable. But horror was actually pretty solid last year. It was a pretty solid year for the horror industry. If you actually watched horror movies, Casey.
Honestly, I thought 2019 was a much stronger year, but also I was able to go to movie theaters in 2019.
Yeah, that I did miss that, and there was only like one item on this list that I saw in theaters, which depressed me to no end. But
there's supposed to be an Edgar Wright horror movie at the #1 spot of my list this year, and the fact that it is not is really sad to me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's bummer.
For next year.
Yo.
Well, welcome to another miserable podcast, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Zach. Joining me, as always, Professor Casey, soon to be Professor Kris Pistol. How's it going, fellas?
I don't know why I'm pointing like I'm on video. My other podcast is video.
Maybe at some point will be a video. Maybe
this past year was weird for movies in general because nothing was like anticipated in coming out in a theater. I was confused at where things were coming out, if things were coming out. There are so many movies right now that are on people's top 10 that you can't see anywhere, and it feels unfair.
And Zach alluded to me not watching enough horror films this year. That's 100% true. I kind of started my job that's the beginning of my career that I went to school for. So I didn't have as much free time, and I work regular job hours now, and I don't get to be the guy that always has Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. I get Saturday and Sunday, but that ends up being recording podcast time. Thanks, Zach. And so I try to watch as much as I can. I've got some real left field stuff. I proposed to Zach that we call this horror releases of 2020. And the reason for that is I have some stuff that's not necessarily a movie release or not necessarily a new 2020 release that was released for the first time in 2020 that I feel like if it was missing from my recap of 2020, I wouldn't feel right about it. And I also feel like this is my only chance to talk about some of the things. So, and also I needed to fill out a top 5 list, and I wasn't loving most of the stuff I watched this year, which if you go back and listen to some of the other podcasts, I wasn't loving most of the stuff I was watching this year. So it's going to be releases in general. And no, I didn't pick the Friday the 13th Blu-ray set. We've talked about it enough. You should have it by now. If you don't, you're punk, Zach.
Well, I do have the poster, thanks to my good friend Kris here. Casey.
Yeah, I'm not that nice of a person. I will never give those posters away.
I had a feeling you wouldn't, Casey, so I thought it was my duty.
Yeah, I need to buy
Thanks,
frames. I really do. But I feel like to buy a frame, I need to go frame shopping, and I haven't done that yet because we are on mega lockdown once again in California.
Yeah, I was gonna say Target has some good frames, but wear a hazmat suit while you're in there.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into this, guys, because we have a lot to talk about. So the way this is going to work is we each have about a top 5. I have a top 6 because there's one I did not want to leave out. But we're going to go through our top 4 or 5. And then before we reveal our top picks, we're going to rattle off our honorable mentions. And I have quite the list because I did see a lot of independent horror this year. We couldn't get to the theaters, but I watched a lot of streaming stuff. And there are plenty of great movies that deserve to be mentioned and deserve to be seen. And I want to give a shout out to those guys. So let's get into it.
Zach does the heavy lifting for all of us.
Yeah, which means, Zach, you have more. You have 6, so you have to start just so that it ends up
I guess I
in
do
an
have
even
to.
place.
I guess I do have to start. Honestly, I caught up on a lot of movies that I had not seen right after Christmas. I've probably watched I don't know how many in the last week, but I feel caught up. I feel ready to. I didn't get to everything, and we'll get into some of the ones I missed, but I am ready to start off. Another Miserable Podcast, best horror releases of 2020. So,
Are
let's
you?
do
Because
this.
it sounds like you're stalling.
I'm trying to set the stage here.
He's trying to build it up, Christian.
Number 6. So all the items on my list, generally the main rule of the best horror releases of 2020 is it has to have released in 2020. Well, there's a slight caveat with this one in that it did come out in a festival, but it was available for free to watch shortly after that for a limited time. So I'm going to count it even though it's going to get a wide release this coming year, hopefully. And that is What Happens Next Will Scare You by Kris LaMartina. So you guys might know Kris LaMartina. He directed the wonderful, amazing cult hit WNUF Halloween Special, which is one of my favorite things to watch every Halloween season. This movie came out really no one talked about it when it came out because it had a very kind of just limited. It came out in the Nightmare Film Festival Masquerade.
Nightmares Film Fest.
And we wouldn't have known about it if we didn't follow the creators of WNUF Halloween Special. Yeah.
So it was part of the Nightmares Film Festival Masquerade.
I guess that's just how this guy rolls. He likes to make movies and then just silently put them out, hide copies in bathrooms.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We probably couldn't quite do that this year, unfortunately, with the pandemic. But so it was out for a short weekend. I think I bought a ticket to see a screening on my computer for $20, and it was totally worth it. And this is just a really, really unique kind of twist on the horror anthology. So it's I just think WNUF Halloween Special, Kris LaMartina, he knows how to hide his budget. He knows how to get the most out of his budget. I think I reviewed this, I think maybe it was our end of summer review roundup show, or no, maybe not end of summer. I reviewed it on one of our episodes. Anyway, it's about a group of employees like BuzzFeed that work at a company like BuzzFeed. Sorry, I can't talk this morning. I woke up at 5:45. Just bear with me. So they are tasked on Halloween night with coming up with an article for the top 13 scariest videos on the internet. And so the bulk of this movie is them presenting these videos in a pitch meeting to their boss while weird shit starts to happen around the office. And the reason that starts to happen is because one of these videos is a recording of this weird Native American song. It's like a cursed song or something. And so one of the dudes plays it in this meeting. Dumbass. And so weird stuff starts to happen after that as they're going through this meeting presenting these videos. So I'm not going to say anything else because saying anything else would spoil it. But it borrows that the videos that they are showing in the meeting kind of LaMartina borrows that VHS vintage footage aesthetic that he used so well.
It sounds a lot like VHS.
So that aspect of it, most of the videos, they're not all kind of in that VHS style. Some of them are supposed to be newer, vlog style, YouTube, influencer type videos. It's kind of a mixture, but a lot of it is kind of that older VHS style footage, and it looks great as it always does. And the wraparound kind of narrative that's going on in the office is engaging. It's not as the most polished item on my list, or even as polished as some of the honorable mentions, But it makes up for that with just creativity and fun practical effects and just originality. I would say this is the most original horror movie I saw this year, which is really a high praise because I saw some very original films this year. I really enjoyed this. This is the one I'm most excited to revisit just because there I feel like lots of Easter eggs and things I missed. And so I'm really hoping this gets picked up by Shudder this year. This is What Happens Next Will Scare You. So please check that out when it comes out. It's a really fun take on the horror anthology, really novel.
I may have missed this. Did Chris Martinez direct all of this different kind of segments or videos that you see?
Yeah, I mean, it was directed by him and co-written by Jimmy George, who also produced it. So those guys are just a great tandem. They're some of the most unsung, I think, voices in the horror industry right now that don't get as much love as they deserve because they really put out great stuff. So.
Good Twitter follows too. Especially Jimmy, because he's also like a script doctor and runs like a consulting stuff. And he just tweets about some of the bullshit he sees in people's scripts when he does it. And it's really entertaining. Zach, if you don't mind, do you mind if I start with my number 5?
Yeah, let's get through it.
For it. Okay, so my number 5 is The Invisible Man. And it was nice. It's the only one on my list that we saw in theaters. One of my honorable mentions was also seen in a theater, but this a lot of people are going to forget about this at the end of the year because it came out so early in 2020. And I just think it's important. And we've gone in depth on a previous episode, so I'm not going to recap too much on this, but I'm going to say that Universal Studios is something that's very important to me. I've been a big fan of the park ever since I was like a little kid. It got me into wanting to study film in the first place. And without the Universal monsters, there would be no Universal Studios. And the revivals they've attempted have been dog shit, to say the least. If you don't remember, go ahead and go rewatch that Tom Cruise Mummy movie, or even worse, the True Brave Souls. Go watch Dracula Untold, that big piece of fucking garbage movie.
I saw that in the theater.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, Chris.
I actually missed both of those just because I heard how bad they were and I just never got around to watching them.
Yeah.
I don't remember it at all.
Luckily, HBO likes to show trash, so I
Quick poll, did you guys like the Brendan Fraser Mummy, the first one?
Oh, everyone likes the Brendan Fraser Mummy. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, even with my hatred for mummies,
it's not a horror movie.
My love for Brendan Fraser eclipses my hate for mummies. My love for Encino Man's Brendan Fraser eclipses my hate for mummies.
I'm a secret Stephen Sommers fan now.
All right, yeah.
The Mummy, Deep Rising.
Deep Rising's pretty great too. He's like a good Roland Emmerich.
Yeah.
So, okay. I loved Invisible Man. I love the grounded approach. I love that it didn't try to set up some giant cinematic universe, even though it might lead there. I'm cool with that if it does. I'm cool with that if it doesn't. It was just a well-made horror movie, made good on the concept. Best invisible person movie since Hollow Man, and yes, there have been a lot of them, and you don't have to see Kevin Bacon's dick in this, so bonus. So, number 5, Invisible Man.
Wild Things for that.
No Kevin Bacon dick. Put that on the DVD box.
No Kevin Bacon dick.
Another miserable podcast.
Kevin's Bacon's dick is not in this. Casey.
That's your review on Letterboxd. Kevin Bacon's dick is not in there.
Shit, I should make that my review on Letterboxd.
Casey from Another Miserable Podcast. All right, Chris, what is your number 5?
Oh, okay. So my number 5 is another movie that came out at the very beginning of the year, so early in the beginning of the year that I thought it was a 2019 movie when I originally was making my list. So I didn't include it, and I was like, and then it was only this morning that I was looking up, just doing a double check of 2020 horror movies, and I was like, oh wait, no, it's technically, yeah, people are counting it as a 2020 one, so I'm gonna put it on there. It is Gretel und Hansel.
Oh yeah, this is one I forgot about.
Yeah, you guys did an in-depth review on an episode I wasn't on, I believe.
Okay.
Or maybe I was on that episode.
So this is directed by Oz Perkins, the son of Anthony Perkins. star of a really bad dog movie with Gary Busey.
Yes, I was just watching the best of the worst on that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. But Oz Perkins is like one of the most interesting, I think, new horror directors out right now. Blackcoat's Daughter is fucking great. This is not as good as that. This might be his weakest movie, but it's still, I think, worth checking out. Just seeing this in the theaters, I think, was totally worth it because this is a beautiful looking movie. It is gothic as fuck. It is filled with just beautiful autumn woods, smoke, just great American Gothic, witchy atmosphere. It is also pretty damn slow. So it's one of those movies where it's one of the horror movies where you look up the like Rotten Tomato score and the critics is like, you know, like 4 stars and the audience is like 1 star. It's like every review is either 4.5 stars. Oh, this is amazing, or 1 star. This is the worst movie piece of shit I've ever seen in my life.
Polarizing.
Yeah, polarizing, which I think always makes for an interesting movie. But it's not an atypical horror movie. It's all about atmosphere. It was definitely, for me, just like lacking in sort of a narrative push. So I felt like it definitely needed a lot more work on the screenplay, which I think he did not write this. And he did write The Blackcoat's Daughter. So I think could be one sign of it. But it's a beautifully directed movie and it's beautifully shot. And the lady who plays the witch is fucking fantastic. So I think it's worth people checking out if you're into that kind of stuff.
And the director, Osgood, he's the guy in Legally Blonde, right? I'm not making that up.
Perkins?
Yeah, Oz Perkins. I'm not pulling that out of my ass. He's like the awkward dude in Legally Blonde.
Dude, he's just an awkward dude.
He is in Legally Blonde.
I'm sorry, Mr. Perkins. I know you're trying to
every acting role he has is the awkward guy. He's fucking Anthony Perkins' son, though. What do you expect? Yeah.
I mean, he was great in that. I mean, that's a good movie. I'm secure enough to say Legally Blonde.
I'm just imagining him being on like the interview circuit, and he's trying to like present himself as this serious like modern horror director, and people are just like, so when you were shooting Legally Blonde,
I know he's listening to this and going, God damn it!
20 years ago when you were in Legally Blonde.
I'd be like, did Gary Busey fall in that bush on purpose, or did he just fall? That would be my question. Man, okay.
So Gretel and Hansel, yeah, check. We did review this like at one of our first episodes of the year last year. It was our first or second, so if you want to see our fuller thoughts on that, check it out. Yeah, it was.
That is why I wasn't on the episode, because it was the first. Yeah,
I think you missed one of them. I think it was the second one that you missed, so it must have been the second episode. But yeah, it was. I definitely enjoyed it. It was just, I think I remember a little slower and I wanted more to happen. I think one of the main critiques, but it looks gorgeous, as Kris mentioned. So, all right. So I'm doing my number 5 now since I had 6. All right, guys. So this is actually probably the movie I rated highest on Letterboxd. So let me just give another thing about ratings. Ratings are constantly in flux for me. You watch a movie once and you like love it, and you watch it again and you're like, like, I'm not feeling it as much this time. Generally, like, if I love something, I love it. My thoughts of this movie haven't really changed, but, like, I'm very blinded and very biased with this next one. So.
Okay, so Zach, what we're saying is Zach has no integrity. And his ratings are meaningless. Zach,
no, what's your number? I'm saying?
I'm the same way, dude. I'm making my best of 2020 list right now, and there are some movies that I rated 4 stars that are higher than movies I rated like 4.5 stars. And I'm like, I refuse to explain myself.
Yeah, people can fuck off if they want you to explain. Seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
no, what I'm saying is I have just different kind of metrics for the best horror movie, or I guess horror release of 2020.
I already know what your answer is on this one.
Yeah.
And if you included it on the list... Okay, go ahead, because I'm going to rip apart... I have it narrowed down to 2, and I'm going to rip both of them apart. Go ahead, Zach. I'm not going to do that. I'm just kidding.
You're such a dick. All I'm saying is pay more attention to what I say about the movies than my actual rating, because my rating changes by like a half star here and there. So, but this one, my rating really hasn't changed. It's just like I have to like put it lower on the list because it's a fluffy documentary, but it's a great documentary, and that is Wolfman's Got Nards, directed by Andre Gower. So,
documentary.
You like this movie too?
I like this movie too. It's not on my top 5. I just feel like there's half of a good documentary and there's half of a bunch of people saying, "Oh, I remember this movie. It was awesome." And which made it more of a tribute than a documentary for half of it. But I think the tidbits you get are pretty good.
Here's the thing. So, guys, the Monster Squad, as I've mentioned countless times on here, is why I fell in love with horror movies. I was the age of the kids in the squad probably when I saw this movie. I was probably about 11 years old. And this documentary encapsulates exactly why I love it and exactly why I think it's a really special piece of filmmaking. But it's a love letter, and that's why it's not a hard-hitting documentary. This isn't Blackfish. It's a love letter to a weird, niche, cult, oddball 80s B movie that fell by the wayside when it came out and didn't really receive recognition like it deserved until like 19 years later. But it's not all fluffy. You see how much that Fred Dekker struggled grappling with the fact that this movie bombed completely and it kind of wrecked his career for the time being.
If you want Fred Dekker to depress the shit out of you about something you love, this is the documentary for you.
So it's hard because you see all these people talking about how much they love this movie and how much it means to them, which is so heartwarming to see. And then you kind of see his interview and he's just like so kind of torn about it because it was his passion project, and it was clearly a passion project for everybody that worked on this movie. And it came out and it just fizzled. Yeah, it just fizzled, And he's such a creative, great filmmaker, and so it's hard to see that. But it is such a wonderful movie, and I hope he's able to take solace that so many people love it. And it was so great to see that it means so much to so many people. This movie that I saw when I was like 11 years old, and that not a lot of people are talking about. So,
I feel like they should have made him watch that part before they talked to him, and then he would have been in a better place, because it was kind of a bummer.
Maybe. Or maybe he's like John Carpenter, where he just refuses to be cheered up.
He's also gone to all these screenings, though, and seen all the fans that love his movie. He's seen the people that love this movie. He knows how much this movie means to a lot of people. It's not blind to him. It kind of messed up his career. So, I understand why he's so conflicted about it. As he puts it in the film, and I think I mentioned my review of this documentary on an earlier episode, it's like shooting a basket out of hoop and finding out it goes in 19 years later. That's like the worst torture in the world. So, but I absolutely loved every second of this documentary. But like I said, this isn't like a super, hard-hitting documentary. It's a love letter to a weird, wonderful 80s B movie. And
it is a wonderful movie. It just didn't make my top 5. I agree with everything Zach's saying, and it's a great choice, and you should pay to see it. Put that money in Andre's pocket.
Yeah, Andre Gower did. I think this is his directorial debut, maybe. He did it. He's the star of the Monster Squad. Bless you, Kris. He sneezed if that wasn't caught on the recording. Anyway, so I just absolutely love this. So if you go on Letterboxd, I probably gave this a higher rating than anything on this list, but that's because I just love this movie so much, and it means the Monster Squad so much, and it means so much to me. I will certainly pick this up on Blu-ray at some point, but I highly recommend checking this out. If you haven't seen the Monster Squad, it's probably not going to connect with you in quite the same way, but I still think it's worth seeing. There are some
if
really
you haven't seen the Monster Squad, stop listening to our podcast and go watch the fucking Monster Squad. It's on Amazon Prime right now, I think. So go watch it. This actually totally kicks the ass of the documentary that came with the collector's edition of the DVD release, which was good. It was good, but it lacked the personal touches. I think if you combined the two, you would have the perfect Monster Squad documentary, because they got a lot of the people that this one didn't get. And that's kind of what bothered me, is they didn't get a lot of the people. But the original I will say, did.
This is more than like a talking head documentary, which is why another documentary that was excellent this year, which I will mention when I get to my honorable mentions, didn't make this list because it was pretty much just a talking head documentary. And this has more of that personal touch that I like seeing in a documentary. So that's my number 5. We have a lot to get through, so let's keep going, guys. So Casey, number 4.
Okay, so my number 4 is going to be a strange choice, and it's going to be here just for cultural significance and for making people feel good. And this is a big thank you to Shudder and a thank you to Joe Bob Briggs for season 2 of The Last Drive-In. So I'm including in this Joe Bob's Halloween special, the Halloween Hootenanny. I'm also including Joe Bob Saves Christmas in this as well. Which if you listen to our Dial Code Santa Claus episode, he showed it like the next night. So after we recorded. So yeah, I didn't pick this because he showed me a bunch of stuff that I haven't seen before. I've seen almost every movie that he did in season 2 before he showed it. I'm picking this because the choices he made of what to show, and it could be choices Shudder made, whatever. Whoever made the choices made great ones. And exposed people to movies that they would not see otherwise. I can tell the listeners of this show, I can tell every single one of my friends how awesome Tetsuo the Iron Man is, but nobody but Zach's going to watch it based on my recommendation. Zach's cool like that. Everyone else, they need somebody like Joe Bob to do it. They trust him more than me. I'm a little sad about that.
He's great at exposing people.
He's a very good curator. And I gotta say that between getting Hack-O-Lantern on there for the Halloween episode, goddamn cinematic masterpiece. Getting people to watch Cannibal Holocaust and also doing an alternate version of Cannibal Holocaust that they don't have to watch the movie and can just watch his bits if they're against the animals being killed for real, which does suck and is part of the movie. He's done some great stuff. He also guided us through Scare Package and told us which segments were probably worth skipping. He was very honest about Scare Package despite being in the movie. And I just want to give a big thumbs up to that. All the great charities he raised money for in his Christmas auctions as well. Kudos to Joe Bob. He got COVID this year and it was a little dicey. Ooh. And he's good now. So I'm glad to still have him around. And I wanted to put this on the list because I think it's very important. And I think if our listeners aren't watching the Joe Bob stuff, they should be. You should all be subscribed to Shudder already is what I'm saying. Because if you try to cancel, they'll never let you go. Because their customer service is garbage. So make sure you want it before you subscribe. That's what I'm saying.
This is our episode weekly promotion for Shudder.
Promotion / caveat emptor about Shudder. All right, Kris, that leaves your number 4. I have been waiting to hear this one. It seems for like 10 minutes.
Okay. So my number 4 is a movie that I had not heard of until I started catching up with stuff to make my list, and I was going through and watching some trailers to see like what looked most interesting, and just based on the trailer, this looked really, really interesting. This is The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
This is one of the ones I did not get to.
So I'll tell you all about it. So this is directed and starring in the lead role this guy Jim Cummings. Not to be confused with Winnie the Pooh actor.
God, I was so thinking it was going to be him. Damn.
Yeah. It would be a very different movie and probably definitely more entertaining if it was so. But this was a very unique watching experience. So it seems like so the basic plot is that this small little winter town seems to be crazed by a werewolf creature who is picking off women in the town one by one. But really what the movie is about this sheriff who's trying to have to keep it together while trying to solve this thing, dealing with the pressure of the town, thinking he's incompetent, because he's extremely incompetent, dealing with like his daughter thinking he's an idiot, his father who is also a sheriff in the town, who's like the elderly sheriff who's like trying to get his dad to retire, but his dad just will not retire despite having health problems. He's an alcoholic. He's dealing with his ex-wife who's always giving him shit. it's got a very interesting tone. It's almost like Coen Brothers esque meets. It's like if a character. I compared this character to like one of the deputies in Reno 911. Like if that character was a real person. So like sort of like taking that character and like grounding them down into a real person, real scenario, and then putting them in like Fargo.
I heard comparisons to like Dead Don't Die as well, like Jim.
I still need to see Dead Don't Die, but I feel like that would probably be apt. It's a very like quirky, almost going for Coen Brothers esque type of humor, but it definitely made me laugh a couple more than a couple times, as well as just kind of go like, is that supposed to be funny? I'm not sure, because it gets really fucking dark as well. This werewolf is vicious. It's very gory at times. My main complaint with it is that it kind of presents itself as a mystery, and I don't think, without spoiling anything, I don't think it like successfully like lands the ending in an extremely satisfying way. And there are times where I think that the tone just is a little confused or a little bit all over the place. Like I could see like just mainstream audiences watching this and just being like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is this movie doing? But it was definitely like, I was definitely engaged the entire time and interested in see where it's going. And I want to check out more of this guy's stuff. I don't know. I think his first movie was more like a independent drama. So this is kind of his first foray into horror. So who knows if he'll do something like this again.
But I think he plays a cop in that one too, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's called Thunder Road.
Yeah.
Maybe he just wants to be a cop.
It's almost like a critique of cops, though, in a way.
Yeah. Maybe he just wants to be an inept cop.
Yeah, it's this hilarious part where they're like driving down the road and someone throws a beer bottle at the cop car, and it's like a jump scare, and they're like, "What the fuck was that?" And he's like, "Someone threw a beer bottle at us," and he's just like deadpan seriously goes like, "Why would anyone throw a beer bottle at a cop car?" It's just the funniest shit. But yeah, I think I had to rent this on Apple, so it's not free anywhere yet that I know of. But I'd say it's worth checking out for sure.
It absolutely sounds like something Shudder would pick up as soon as they see it, though.
Yeah. I don't know.
This was the main, that was like probably one of the main like independent horror releases that I did not get to. I got to as many as I could, but that one just almost watched it, but I didn't. I chose another one instead yesterday, so.
You chose
right, I guess,
poorly.
So I guess, is it my number 4 now? Is that
That's your number 4.
All right, well, my number 4 was already named by one of you guys, and that is The Invisible Man, directed by Lee Winnell. This is how you reboot the Universal Monsters, guys. This is how you reboot the Universal Monsters.
It's how you reboot this Universal Monster.
Yes.
If you try to stick like Frankenstein in this, it's not going to work.
No.
Yeah.
But I mean, Lee Winnell, I've been a fan of his for a long time. And so he's had a really great couple of years with this and Upgrade, which I still need to see.
Oh, Upgrade's dope. Yeah.
Yeah. But he just had the perfect approach to the story. It's just a really gnarly, tense cat and mouse thriller. There's some really, truly shocking scenes in this that I'm really sad I did not see this in theater. I do not know why I didn't see it. It was like, it came out right before the pandemic was starting.
We didn't see it together? I went by myself to see this?
I think so.
Okay.
As I saw it in March. That's when I wrote my Letterboxd review or rating.
Yeah, this was the second to last movie I saw in theaters.
Yeah, Elizabeth Moss like owns every second of this movie, and it's not predictable. It really keeps you guessing. It feels like the story can spin in 100 different directions at any moment, which I really liked.
And it kind of does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And I think the ending is right on the money, without giving anything away. Sure, the science behind how the Invisible Man works, maybe a little sketchy, but like I think it was in the original book too. Like,
dude, he drank a potion.
It's not like better than drinking a potion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, it's not impossible to turn a human invisible. At least not yet, sadly. And we don't have any invisibility cloaks either, so it at least seems fictionally plausible. So, but yeah, my only regret is not seeing it in theater. I'm really excited to see. I know Lee Winnell is supposed to be doing a Wolfman reboot, so I'm very stoked for that. So this was awesome. One of the, if not the best, like horror thriller of the year. If you've not
Yeah.
seen this movie, guys, go out of your way. It is fantastic. I can easily see it making like the top of anyone's list. So really good.
And isn't James Wan attached to like a Universal property now too? Like I feel like this is.
He's probably
I've been
attached to like
seeing-
everything.
I've
Yeah.
been seeing like rumors and stuff where it's like this is the success of this movie is going to help re-kickstart their sort of failed dark universe.
Mhm.
Which I think if they're going in this direction, hopefully then I think it's the right direction to go in. All right, Casey.
All right,
Casey, you're
so
up.
I tend to seek out. So this is my number 3. I seek out older movies that I haven't seen more than I seek out modern stuff. But there were 3 that were released this year by Vinegar Syndrome that I think need to be given a spotlight. And those are the films of Ruben Galindo Jr. So Ruben Galindo Jr. is a dude. He still does like Spanish channel TV stuff. But he comes from a family of entertainers. His grandpa was a musician that's on the Kill Bill 2 soundtrack with one of his songs. His dad was a filmmaker, and so was he. And most of the stuff he did was kind of straightforward. But in the 80s, he did some horror movies. So in 85, he did one called Cemetary of Terror. In 88, he did an English language one called Don't Panic. And in 89, he did one called The Grave Robbers. If you can't find any of these, go to vinegarsyndrome.com. They are available on Blu-ray. Right now, that's the only place you can get them. They are absolutely tremendous movies. Kris talked a lot about vibes and atmosphere, and these movies have that. But I feel like it's a Hammer movie by way of thriller, or is the actual like aesthetic of these movies. It feels like you're watching the music video.
Oh, that is awesome.
It feels like you are watching Cemetery of Terror and Grave Robbers specifically feel like you are watching a 2-hour version of the Thriller video. And
okay,
there's
just like it's at the top of my list right now.
There's direct references to Michael Jackson in Cemetery of Terror. There's a kid wearing a Michael Jackson jacket through the whole thing with a shitty Michael Jackson airbrushed face on the back of it. So it's intentional, okay? So both of those 2 movies, they're kind of like bookends to this guy's horror career because he stopped making horror movies after this. And Grave Robbers actually came out first by Vinegar Syndrome. I actually think that's probably the best one if you're looking for a good, fun horror movie. Cemetery of Terror is a little slow, but the last half of the movie turns into Spookies, like the last half of Spookies.
Oh, nice.
And so I can't recommend that enough. And I mean that as like a compliment. Don't Panic is probably the most accessible to people because it was shot in English and it was, all the other ones are Spanish with English subtitles. But Don't Panic is a Nightmare on Elm Street ripoff. It's not quite apparent. You think it's just a possession movie until you get to the last, quarter of the movie where you actually see the villain. And he's an exact copy of the Elm Street 2 makeup, but with gray hair. So it's like if Freddy kept his hair. Yeah. And they are all great movies, though. Great vibe to them. They feel like you're watching an El Santo Blue Demon horror movie without luchadores in it and just regular people. And specifically Cemetery of Terror and Grave Robbers, because they all kind of had that thriller vibe to them, too. So I can't recommend these enough. If you were to only get one, I would say probably to get the Grave Robbers, but they're all pretty great. All available on Vinegar Syndrome. They dug these up. They released all 3 of them. I want more, but there is no more. The guy stopped making horror movies. So, boom. But all 2020 releases, they've come out like the last 3 months of 2020.
Nice.
And by that, I mean the DVDs, the Blu-rays. The actual movies were 85, 88, and 89. But I like older stuff, so there we go.
All right, Kris, you're number 3.
Okay, my number 3. So I'm bending some rules slightly. In the spirit of...
That's what we do here.
I know.
Yeah.
In the spirit of television becoming movies now and movies merging into television, and a lot of people starting to rate or log standalone miniseries on Letterboxd, and I saw a lot of people logging this on Letterboxd this year, so I was like, fuck it. So I'm gonna go with The Haunting of Bly Manor. Netflix's The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Nice.
Did you guys get to see this?
No.
It was another one that was on my list, and I'd heard kind of mixed things about it, but I still wanted to watch it. I did start to watch another kind of horror series on Netflix, Sweet Home, which is weird as hell. It's like a Korean...
dude, based on the fucking
manga.
movie Sweet Home.
It's about like monsters that start attacking this apartment complex. Really cool designs. Anyway, let's get into Chris's pick. Sorry, buddy.
It's okay. So anytime there's a giant fucking haunted house, I'm there 100%. And this is based off of Turn of the Screw, the famous Henry James novel, which has been adapted into, a dozen movies, The Innocents, and all the way from a great movie like The Innocents to utter shit like The Turning from last year. But this is done right, and it's definitely a departure from the original source material. It kind of takes those bare bones and really, really expands on it. It was kind of interesting. I was watching this for the first time. Around the same time I was re-watching the first season, The Haunting of Hill House. And I don't think this season is definitely not as technically show-offy. There's not a much just sort of like really awesome set pieces or, like The Haunting of Hill House has a lot of just like great sequences that are just that really seem like they're pushing the medium forward, and this is pretty fairly standard as far as standalone kind of horror gothic stuff goes. But I really like the characters. The second to last episode, which is like all in black and white, and is now we're gonna go back and we're gonna kind of like explain a lot of what's been going on this season. I really, really loved. It's a great standalone episode. Sort of my only minor complaints is that the last episode, it feels like it ends a little too quickly, and then there's about maybe like 30 so minutes of just like fillerish. Some people complained about this not being scary enough. I thought there were like some great, really creepy sequences in this.
Compared to like Hill House, though.
Well, Hill House is like, it's more like depressing. Like as I was rewatching Hill House again, I was just like, fuck, like shit is just like dark and like it's scary on like a God, it's awful kind of way. And This is just more like, this is definitely more romantic, and there's definitely where if like the theme of Hill House is grief, I think the theme of Bly Manor is more of it's more romantic. It's more like a lost kind of tragic love story. It's like at the center of the story.
That's probably why I wasn't eager to watch it, just because I knew how depressing Hill House was, even though I thought it was great. Like I was like, I just don't know if I could do this year of all years. I don't know if I can do that.
It's a lot less depressing than Hill House. Okay. So I would say that's holding you back. I'd say check it out. There's some great performances in it, great standalone episodes. Takes a little bit to get going, but I thought I really, really enjoyed it overall.
Awesome. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you with this talking about Sweet Home. I'll get to that in a later episode because I've only watched 3 episodes and
I need to watch it.
I have mixed feelings on it.
Yeah.
Basically, my issue is like there's some really cool looking monsters, but like when one dude that has like fists, like gigantic, Gollum fists monster, and he punches this girl in the face multiple times into the ground, and she survives with like not a scratch on her face. I'm like, okay, how am I supposed to buy into these monsters doing anything if she survives that? Like, so
I really wonder if this is based on the Japanese video game that was like the fucking inspiration for Resident Evil.
There is, I think, a manga, so there might have been a game that I'm not aware of. Anyway, I'll talk to more about that in a later episode because I'll probably go through the rest. But yes, The Haunting of Blythe Manor, is that the name?
Bly.
Bly Manor. Blythe. The Haunting of Bly Manor. I've definitely been keen to check it out. Hill House was fantastic. Really great recap there, Kris. So.
Your number 3, Zach.
My number 3. What is my number 3? My number 3.
I hope you know.
I do know. So my number 3 is the Mortuary Collection, directed by Ryan Spindell.
Oh, wonderful. The one that you're a little biased on. Okay.
I'm not really biased.
I have another review of the Mortuary Collection, actually.
Did either of you guys see this?
I did not get
No,
to
but
see
my
this.
friend,
For
my friend
shame.
Sean watched it, and he said that it has cool monsters, but the writing is terrible. That's the review I got.
He's wrong, but that's okay.
The monsters are terrible?
No, the writing is not bad. It's good. So
I definitely was interested in seeing this. But yeah.
the Mortuary Collection is, I would say, probably the best traditional horror anthology that I've seen. And traditional, I mean since Trick or Treat came out, So it's yeah, the special effects are awesome. There's CGI, but it's good CGI. The thing is just each segment is original. They're not predictable stories. Again, I didn't know exactly what direction they were going to go in. There's humor. The wraparound segment, it takes place at this kind of... So basically what the wraparound narrative is this mortuary, and played by Clancy Brown. He plays this mortician. He's very ominous, called Montgomery Dark, and it's about a girl that applies to work at this mortuary. And so the 3 first segments are all about bodies that he's embalmed or passed through there, and how they died, basically, I'm pretty sure. So you kind of, that's sort of a slight spoiler, so what's going to happen in the story, but not really. The last story I'm not going to say anything on, but each story takes a different twist and a different turn. The special effects are fantastic. The writing is excellent, so I don't know what that guy was talking about. But, it's not maybe quite the heights of Trick or Treat, but it's damn close. There's some really, really great moments here. It's also one of those
really
movies
cool.
where... It's also one of those movies where the cast play multiple characters in different segments. So you'll see actor
nice.
that was maybe the lead in another segment playing a bit part in the next segment. There's some really funny lines
I hate
here.
that.
It works okay here. It's not like they're big name actors. They're
Hey,
Do we
unknown
get to
actors,
see
so.
Clancy Brown be anything near the Kurgan from Highlander? Because that was career-defining role, Zach.
Hey, we've got a
He's
praise
great.
quote from Sam Raimi in the trailer.
Yeah, he's great. This is a really fantastic. Thought about putting it higher, but it landed at number 3 for me. But the Mortuary Collection is one of the best horror movies I saw last year.
So we know that Scare Package isn't in Zach's
No,
top
Scare
5.
Package isn't on my honorable mentions either. Not that it's a bad movie. It just didn't quite make it. But
It's on my honorable mentions.
Okay.
But yeah.
I really like the Mortuary Collection. So if you have not seen this, guys, it's on Shudder.
I will probably
yeah, it's on Shudder right now.
Yeah.
I will probably actually check this out because it looks.
It's
I
really
wish I-
good.
It looks like visually, it looks like it's got some great production design.
Oh, it's fantastic. Original stories, funny. This is just a great watch, guys. So check this out.
I was gonna say, I wish I'd watched this instead of The Rental last night.
That was another one I didn't get to. That was the one I tried to see at the drive-in that I got turned away from. So,
Shit.
yeah, that
okay.
was
It
kind
was
of
a lot
what
of
I heard
eh.
about it. But anyway, so the Mortuary Collection. Looking forward to seeing more from Ryan Spindell. So check that one out, guys. That's my number 3. So number 2, Casey.
Okay, I picked this one for number 2 because it is the shit, and it is also
The shit.
it is
do that.
also very culturally important to watch this movie, and that is Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street. I think that this documentary is something everyone should watch. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is super, super important to me anyway, though, because it was my introduction to the Elm Street series. It's the one I saw first when I was 5 or 6 years old, and I became a fan. It basically made me a fan of horror movies. Elm Street 2. So Jesse, Mark Patton was my first final girl. So it wasn't weird to me. I just thought, okay, they got a dude as the victim, whatever. And then, everyone else is saying how, it seems weird and how the movie seems gay and all this stuff. And I got to see some of Mark Patton's side of it in Never Sleep Again, which you kind of have to watch before you watch this movie because it's like a companion piece. You're not going to get as much out of Scream Queen if you don't see Never Sleep Again, which I highly recommend.
I would say you need to see Nightmare on Elm Street 2 before you see Scream Queen. I don't think you need to necessarily see I mean, I obviously watched Never Sleep Again, but as someone
Yeah,
that
you need to do
still
both,
hasn't
yeah.
really gotten through Never Sleep Again yet, I loved this documentary, so I don't think you need to see Never Sleep Again to appreciate what's going on in this documentary. I think it stands
feel
alone
like
as
you
a
get-
piece of work. Maybe you'll
I
get a little
appreciate
more out
that
of it.
point of view.
Yeah,
I think you get more out of it, is what I'm saying. But definitely don't watch it if you haven't seen Elm Street.
Yeah, you need to
2.
see Elm Street too.
Yes. And which I think still is the only one that's on Netflix. I don't know. I've got, the Blu-ray set, but
Yeah.
I think so this is on Shudder. It did some festivals before it got released on Shudder last year. And I think it's important to look at what Mark Patton went through in Hollywood in the 80s, and to also think about this is what some people are still going through in Hollywood now, like trans actors, for example. So as we're trying to get equality and equal rights for everyone, you need to go back and look at somebody that had to really fight for his place in the world, which Mark Patton did, and he's in a good place now. But he wasn't for a really long time. So this dude's a survivor. He's got a big tattoo that says Lazarus on it because he's risen above some shit that would probably destroy any of us on our best day. So I think you should watch this movie. I think you should get his side of the story. I think it's important for everyone to watch. And dude, Elm Street 2 rules. Don't let the haters talk shit. It's a great movie.
100%.
Yeah. So that is Scream Queen, available on Shudder. That is my number 2 because I went for a more traditional number 1 that I'm sure one of you guys is going to mention before I get there anyway. But yeah.
Fantastic pick, Casey. All right, Kris, your number 2 pick.
Okay.
Best horror releases of 2020.
Okay, my number 2 is a movie that is getting some buzz as not only one of the best horror movies, but one of the best, showing up in one of the best movies of the year on some people's lists. Mine is Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor.
Ah.
I
like this. It's in my honorable mentions.
Okay. Yeah. I had a feeling it was going to be in your honorable mentions. Yeah, some people are kind of mad on this movie. I think it's fucking awesome. So I think it's, Brandon Cronenberg comes out of the gate, making a horror movie that people are saying is really gory, has some really gnarly stuff in it. So it's hard not to immediately compare him to his dad, being it's almost like people want to just lump this in as a Cronenberg movie or compare it to a Cronenberg movie, and it's not that at all. It's going for a much more sci-fi sort of tone and narrative. It's basically about a woman in an alternate future. And her job is that she possesses people so she can complete assassinations. So our main character is already kind of a terrible person.
And then she kills the people she possesses.
Yes,
get out of
kills the people she possesses. Yeah, you got to tie up those loose ends, Zach. In really terrible ways too. Really gruesome ways. In ways that
might as well have fun with it.
I mean, it's definitely sort of an exploration of how. I think just by the act of killing, how that sort of decreases your humanity or robs you of a sense of humanity, and sort of it's basically the narrative about sort of losing your sense of empathy or your sense of self. And there's a lot of cool, really great sequences in which she's possessed this person and that person starts to fight back. Just some great imagery in this movie, just some great atmosphere. I love a movie that just has such a great style to it. And I thought this had just a really interesting, unique style. And it's fucking gnarly. I'm not sure. So I watched the uncut version, which has some scenes of extensive gore. It had some scenes of extensive
very
gore.
Extensive.
Yeah, there's maybe 1 or 2 parts where I probably would have been I'd take that out. Just because it doesn't, not that it's not cool, but it's it doesn't really fit with the rest of the movie. It's for a second where it's turning into a Lucia Fulci movie.
That's what I think that's what I was my review was I'll have the oven roast Cronenberg with a side of Fulci, please. movies.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like after seeing this movie. It's like excessive gore is fun if it's like, like Dead Alive, it's really silly. Like when it's like more realistic like this, it's just kind of like hard to watch. I'm not as into the hostile torture porn stuff. That's not my thing. So like, and I'm not saying this is like torture porn, but like the gore in this is very like a lot. It's visceral. It's brutal.
Yeah.
So
shocking.
But yeah, this is excellent. I'll say a little bit more about it when I go through my honorable mentions. But is there anything else you wanted to add to your critique, Kris?
Watch it. It's good.
Yeah, Possessor.
So where do I watch it?
Ooh, I think I had to rent this on Apple. I don't think it's free anywhere right now.
I saw it on Vudu. That has the uncut version. I don't know where the regular version is, but you like gore, Casey, so you might as well just watch that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys had me at extreme gore. That's
Yeah, I rented this off of Apple for like $5-6.
Okay.
Certainly one of the better horror releases of the year.
Yeah.
My number 2 was the same as Casey's number 2, and I have a feeling we have the same number 1 pick as well, and that is
we probably do. Yeah.
Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street. This is a fantastic documentary. This is one of those things where I think I rated my initial rating for Wolfman's Got Nards was higher than this, but this documentary is certainly a much more important documentary than Wolfman's Got Nards, as much as I love that movie and that documentary. But this movie is just a really touching look at Mark Patton, his struggles as a closeted gay man in Hollywood, and with the fallout of Elm Street 2 and its reputation as a gay movie. And it just shows his uplifting journey back to Hollywood as he's kind of seeking closure following Elm Street 2. The main kind of demons he's battling is that the writer of Elm Street 2, David Chaskin, refused to kind of admit that he wrote it as a gay movie and that it's kind of a metaphor for coming out. And that's bothered him for, 30 whatever years since
because he blamed Patton for gaying up his movie.
Yeah. And so you really see that struggle, and you see him sit down with Chaskin and Chaskin admitting that he wrote it as a gay movie, and it shows that whole, so you see like his whole kind of journey basically. It talks about the HIV/AIDS pandemic and his former lover that passed from AIDS, and it's really gut-wrenching at times, but it's just a beautiful moving film. And I read a review on IMDb, some douchey review, some guy that was kind of like, I just think he needs to kind of suck it up and get over it, and like it's kind of, I'm like, dude, give me a break. Like this is like, don't like, I'm not to just
trivialize people's lives.
Not to go in on this person, like everyone's entitled to their opinion, but like come on, clearly he was in very like emotional like turmoil for many years over this, and he struggled with it, but he got out of it. He's an activist in the LGBT community now. He's a hero to so many people. Elm Street 2 certainly still has a mixed reception among people in the horror community, but generally it's seen in a much more positive light, and people love this movie, and it's a big movie in the LGBTQ community. So I just think this is one of the most important, such an important documentary, and really more people need to see it. And I just thought it was fantastic. So I don't know if I can add too much more than it's just a really triumphant documentary. So definitely check that out, guys. That's Scream, Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street. Really, really wonderful. So that directed
remember that My Nightmare on Elm Street, or you won't be able to find it. If you watch it on Shudder, you'll be able to find it. It's in the feature.
If you just look up Scream Queen, you're going to get that Ryan Murphy show. So don't do that. But it's also directed by Ryan Chimienti and Tyler Jensen. Just wanted to mention their names, so I'm looking forward to seeing what else they do, because they did a great job with this.
Yeah, excellent documentary.
Sounds like the most emotional documentary experience since the Fresh Prince reunion show, which made me cry twice.
Yeah, this is worse. This'll fuck you up for a little bit. Yeah, I watched the Fresh Prince documentary as well, and it makes you shed a tear for Uncle Phil for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do our honorable mentions, guys. So, Casey, you want to go through your honorable mentions and then do your top pick, or should we just?
I only got a few.
Okay.
So I wanted to throw in a Scare Package because I liked it way more than these guys did. I felt like it was more of my vibe, but I was pretty into it. Plus, it's got Dustin Runnels in it, bro. Come on, and Joe Bob. Also, I got to throw Underwater in there. Because
That's one
I don't think
forgot
anyone
about,
even remembers it came out this year. But
I've seen it on some lists. People are showing it some love for sure.
Okay, good. Like, I don't think it deserves more love than anything I put on my list, but I think, a nice honorable mention. Also wanted to throw out there a little bit of an outside of the box mention, and that is to just kind of the work that Horror Hound magazine and Rue Morgue magazine have been doing to kind of keep things going during the pandemic, and they're still putting out magazines. They're getting you hyped about movies. Print isn't dead, okay? Print is not dead. You're talking to 3 people that used to work in bookstores, so we're a little biased, but subscribe to a horror magazine. Subscribe to Fangoria. They're back in the hands of cool people, so we don't have to pretend they don't exist anymore. All of this stuff. Check out a horror magazine. Subscribe to them. Keep reading. You'll love it. Go to archive.org. Read old ones for free. It's awesome. So anyway, I just wanted to throw in that too. I don't have like a lot of movies to mention, Zach. I know you got a lot more.
You guys want to just go through all the honorable mentions and then do the number ones then?
Yeah. You're not going to like my honorable mention.
All right, Kris, what's your, do you only have one?
Well, besides Underwater, which I totally forgot about. You guys aren't going to like my honorable mention.
All right, what's your honorable mention? Go for it.
Oh, man. Movie that just did not quite make my top 5, but definitely deserves a shout out is Color Out of Space.
Oh, yeah, it didn't make my top 5 either. Yeah, I guess I should have put that in honorable mentions. Shit.
Great Nicolas Cage freaking out, though. I'm sure we'll have a little bit more to say in a minute.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Maybe Zach will. All right,
Zach, your honorable mentions?
All right, so my honorable mentions. All right, so let me talk about His House. Really fantastic, moving, really well plotted ghost story about 2 refugees that have been grappling with guilt, and it delivers on the haunted house front of things too. They like kind of move to England, and they're given they not move. They're like given a house in London. It's just really unique, and the cinematography is beautiful. Fantastic performances from Wunmi Masaku and Sope Darisu. I think Sope Darisu you can see in the crap now. Shit, what is that? Lovecraft Country.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
But it's a great directorial debut from Rummy Weeks. This is a fantastic film. Easily could see it making very top of the list for a lot of people. It was close to making my top 5. Really enjoyed this. It kind of got shades of Amityville Horror, similar kind of to that. Fantastic movie. So that's His House. Probably the film that was closest to making my top 5 is Run, which is next to The Invisible Man, the best thriller I saw last year. Really chilling portrayal of Munchausen by proxy syndrome. Sarah Paulson is fantastic, as is Kira Allen, who I think made her feature film debut in this. Really terrific. Highly recommend it. Great movie. The biggest surprise of 2020 for me, which I talked about with Kris on the last episode, is Letters to Satan Claus. This is a Sci-Fi Channel original movie. It is a wonderful spoof of Hallmark holiday movies. I enjoyed the hell out of this. It's silly as could be. I highly recommend it. The lead actress in it, Kara Knox, is fantastic. There's just some really great jokes. The special effects are silly. The Satan Claus is ridiculous, but this is one of the best, most fun I had watching a horror movie last year, so highly recommend checking it out. Letters to Satan Claus. Mm-hmm. Anything for Jackson. Just watched this the other day on Shudder. Really great. Fresh take on the exorcism subgenre. Really reminded me of the work of James Wan, especially the Insidious series, so it definitely seemed inspired by Insidious, but it has a lot of comedic undertones as well. Julian Richings.
Is this about a cult that is dedicated to Andrew Jackson?
No. It's about
pity.
It's about an older couple, kind of in their kind of 60s, and they kidnap a pregnant young woman because they want to use her baby to bring back their dead grandson. Kind of perform what they call a reverse exorcism, essentially. Julian Richings, who you guys might recognize from the Wrong Turn series. He played, I forget the character's name, but he was kind of one of the main, inbred villains in that series. which I believe they're doing another Wrong Turn soon. Which
he was
cool.
he was butt fucking hillbilly #1.
No, he was like the creepiest one. Anyway, he's
I don't know if
really
I've
great in this.
Recognized anyone from Wrong Turn ever.
but fucking hillbilly #3. Oh,
And Sheila McCarthy is also really is the wife, and she's fantastic. This is this is Justin G. Dick his horror debut. He has a really interesting backstory because he's just directed a bunch of kind of Hallmark style Christmas horror movies, and not horror movies, Christmas movies, and he's been wanting to do a horror feature for a long time, and that was what he wanted to do initially, but he kind of did those movies to kind of get experience and kind of get his foot in the door. And so the fact that he was finally able to do that is just a wonderful story, and this is a great debut from him. I'm excited to see more of what he does. Yeah, really highly recommend that. Anything for Jackson. Possessor. Kris mentioned this, really great movie. The uncut version is, as he said, excessively gory. But Andrea Riseborough and Christopher Abbott are both awesome in this. It's really bleak, but I do enjoy kind of lo-fi, kind of sci-fi films like this, and that's kind of what it is. Again, super unique. Yeah, great film. One of the better horror releases of the year. I'm going to give a shout out to Sputnik. This is a Russian sci-fi tale about a cosmonaut who
He's just making things up now, Casey.
No, I reviewed Sputnik on this podcast earlier in the year. It's about a cosmonaut who comes back from a mission of a failed mission, and he has a weird alien passenger.
Like to give a shout out to the Hubble telescope.
Yeah. It's a very kind of gray visual movie. I think my main critique was that I just think it needed a little more personality and they needed to inject a little humor, but it's and the runtime is padded. It could be a little shorter, and they could have done more with the alien. I wanted a little more action, but still really enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it, if you're looking for a cool kind of alien-ish movie, go for it.
And I feel like Zach's was way meaner before when he reviewed this, and now it's.
I gave it a 3.5-star rating. I thought it was a good movie. That might go down if I watch it again, but I remember enjoying
this on Letterboxd is in Russia. No one cares if they hear you scream.
Yeah, that was pretty much the movie. Host. This was made waves on Shudder when it came out earlier this year. It's a great found footage movie. Great found footage movie. It's basically a better, more organic version of Unfriended. So if you like Unfriended, you're going to enjoy this. It's a lot of fun. Really cool to see a movie.
It's 45 minutes long.
I think it's it's 10 minutes longer than that, but it's a short movie. And it was cool to see a movie that was made during the pandemic and takes place during the pandemic, but isn't really about the pandemic. Impressive feat. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, brace yourself for 200 movies about the pandemic coming next year.
Okay, I've got a few more.
Jesus Christ,
Zach. I gotta go to work.
Come to Daddy. This, no one's talking about this movie. This I saw this earlier in the year, I think back in March, and I think I reviewed it on here briefly. It stars Elijah Wood, who I always love seeing Elijah Wood. He plays this kind of hipster dude that's I think he's a
Elijah
fashion
Wood?
Student. I think he's a fashion student, but the story is that he's going to meet his father, who he hasn't seen in 30 years. He's kind of estranged from him. And it's one of those movies that has two different halves. So the first half of this movie is a very different story, and the second half takes a wild turn. Fortunately, I liked both halves. It's a fun indie horror movie. It's not a grand story, but it's different, and it's a cool kind of mystery sort of thriller, kind of dark comedy. So that's Come to Daddy. Anything with Elijah Wood's usually great, so highly recommend checking it out.
I don't like how he says brilliant all the time.
Did I say brilliant?
No, that Elijah Wood does. You do too, and I've given you shit and called you Elijah Wood for doing it, but yeah.
Another one I'm just going to give a quick shout out to is 1BR, which is on Netflix. Just a unique, different type of thriller. If you guys recall my review earlier this year, I complained that this movie didn't have rat witches in it.
Yeah, you did.
I still hold that complaint, but it's about a young girl who moves into an apartment complex, and everything is not as seems that apartment complex. My main issue is that what is actually going on at this apartment isn't as interesting as I wanted it to be. But that aside, it's a really good thriller. I think it's a different type of horror movie. It was a fun, easy watch. So again, another one of those microwave some popcorn and throw it on. It's you can just sit back and it's fun. So that's 1BR. And the last one I'm going to give a mention to. Not a horror movie, but one of the better releases I saw last year is The Vast of Night. Casey's favorite title.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think
This also made my list as well.
Erroneously called Vast of the Night.
Vast of the Night.
But it's The Vast of Night. It's not a horror movie. It's more of a sci-fi mystery with kind of some Spielberg. Yeah. It's like it's a weird mixture of kind of Spielberg wonderment with like Howard kind of Hawks like dialogue, fast talking dialogue in the beginning.
Yeah,
but it's very
some Sam Raimi in there too.
Yeah, it's like very slow paced, but it's one of those movies. I'm not like one to really gog over like cinematography too much. I'm more of a story person. I appreciate it, but there's some like really like awesome shots in this movie but you're just kind of like, man, how did they do that? Like, so yeah, that's Vast of the Night, or the Vast of Night, dang it. And
yes,
one more thing I will
Vast
mention.
and Night and you'll find it.
I was going to put this on my honorable mentions, but then my co-host very kindly pointed out to me that it did not come out in 2020. But if you have not seen Horror Noir, A History of Black Horror, a really important, really culturally important documentary, definitely check that out. It's been available on Shudder for a while. Go see it. A great examination of the portrayal of black men and women in the horror genre throughout the years. So those are all my honorable mentions. Sorry, I had a lot of them, but I think there was a lot of great independent horror releases this year that I wanted to give love to that people should seek. So let's get to our number ones. Casey, what is your number one pick? The best horror release of 2020.
Okay, so best horror release of 2020 came out early in the year to theaters. I didn't see it in the theaters. I ended up watching it at home, and it stars a very well-known star of the 80s and 90s that kind of known as a character in real life, you know, and their movies, they're kind of that character a lot of the time. I'm, of course, talking about Robert Downey Jr. in Dolittle, number one. Actually, I never saw that movie. Obviously, my choice is Color Out of Space. I think it's Zach's too. We might as well just talk about it now, Zach.
Yeah, that's my number one.
Yeah, and so all I have to say about this is, if you want us to review it, go back and listen to our episode, The Color Out of January, where we talked about it for like 45 minutes.
Well, very briefly, because my memory is a little fuzzy from a year ago. So very briefly, tell me why you guys are so gaga about this, because I liked it. Not super gaga about it as much as you guys are, but I want to hear your praise.
Honestly, after seeing Lost Soul, the documentary about Richard Stanley's Doctor of Island of Dr. Moreau movie, there's no director in Hollywood that I root for more than Richard Stanley right now. I went in really wanting to like this, and I did, because I also like Lovecraft. I feel like this was one of the few horror movies to actually really disturb me. And it was kind of, you know, when the people started melting together. And it takes a lot for a horror movie to disturb me. It usually doesn't happen. This one actually did for a while. Yeah. And I also just love what it did with the actual color itself, kind of making it into a motif throughout the film. Nicolas Cage plays Nicolas Cage, but he's supposed to be crazy, so it's okay in this movie. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would say I prefer it to Mandy as far as Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage.
I agree. I think it's better than Mandy.
And yeah, I just kind of love the feeling, the atmosphere, the weirdness, and the fact that it actually, I felt like what it attempted to do, it accomplished, and it attempted to do things that usually don't work on me. And it worked in this case. But again, I went into it really wanting to see Richard Stanley hit a home run. So,
well, I went into it not really familiar with Richard Stanley's prior work all that much. This is the only horror movie on the list that I saw in theaters, and I will say, guys, it's such a cooler experience in theaters. I did watch it last night and still very much enjoyed it, but seeing this movie in theaters, it's such a gorgeous film to look at. The visuals are just stunning. The colors are just good. When you see it on a big screen, I think I saw this at the ArcLight, and it was just, I had the most visceral reaction to this film after watching it. You know that feeling after you're like at a movie theater and once the movie the credits roll.
It's called a boner.
But it's like it's that excitement, that rush of energy you get after you've just seen a really awesome movie, a really batshit crazy movie, and you're like, a hush falls over the crowd and the credits roll, and then people start to leave, and you just hear this fervor, and people start talking, and like, I don't remember if there was actually a fervor, but like I just had this energy after seeing this movie. It was visceral, and I remember seeing it with my parents, my poor mom, but like I was just super like stoked about this movie, and I just like I was like, damn, that was a crazy ass movie.
Yeah, you get that energy of I gotta tell everybody about this like right now.
It felt very, I mean, because it's Lovecraft, it really does feel very Stuart Gordon and From Beyond, but with like a dash of the Thing. I mean, not only is Nicolas Cage batshit crazy in this movie, but Tommy Chong is in it playing an exaggerated version of himself, and he has a cat named G-Spot. This movie is nuts.
I needed more Tommy Chong in this movie, for sure.
Cage milks an alpaca in this movie, but I think, there's CGI, but the CGI
a male
is good.
alpaca, by the way. He milks a male alpaca.
Yeah.
No, I made that part up.
I think there's a really good blend of, practical effects and visual effects.
Beautiful
this movie just, like, it has a tone. Like, it was the scariest horror movie I saw last year. I thought it had the atmosphere. It had the best atmosphere of any horror movie I saw last year. This movie just entrances you. It's such a strange, crazy story. You don't even know it's kind of like hard to figure out what's going on, but it's one of those movies that I feel like I could watch over and over again and see a different detail I didn't notice or pick up something different. Mm-hmm. For me, it was just the best horror movie of 2020 and my favorite horror movie of 2020.
That the sound design is done in such a way that it's worth a rewatch wearing headphones just so you can pick up some of that stuff that you can get.
I think it's if this ever gets another release in theaters, I highly recommend seeking it out because it's a crazy experience to see it on a big ass screen. Mm-hmm. But I can also see why it's divisive to some people because you kind of have to be on board for it, and like it's weird and it's out there, and you have to love what Nicolas Cage does because he's crazy in this movie. But I think it works for this story because it's such a crazy story. Yeah. So. And I love that Nicolas Cage just got all in on the craziness, and he's like now narrating like the history of cussing on Netflix, and then all his projects sound like batshit insane, and I love it, and I'm excited to see some of his other ones that are coming up. So I just love this movie, so that's why it's my number one. It's not going to be for everybody. I've noticed like on some of the best horror lists of 2020 that it's not even on some people's lists. I've seen it on some, but not a lot, not as much.
You mean like Kris just now?
Yeah, but it's also it came out at the very beginning of the year, so I feel like people have forgotten it. But yeah, for me, I just had the most visceral reaction after seeing this movie. I was excited about it, and I don't think maybe seeing it in theaters had some part in that, but I did watch it again last night, and to me, it still is the best release I saw last year. So, Kris, what were your thoughts on it, and then what is your number one release of 2020?
I can't like disagree with anything you guys said. I think it's definitely more of a subjective experience. I didn't get to see this in the theater. I saw it just at home one night on my television. So I don't think I had as much as engrossing experience as maybe you guys had. I love Nicolas Cage in this movie. I think he's so cagey, definitely more cagey than even in Mandy. He was like, I rewound the scenes like as soon as they were over. Some of his scenes I just rewound them and watched them again because I love them so much. I don't know, I feel like I'm a little biased towards movies in which something happens and things get bad and then they just get worse, and that's pretty much the movie. Is that things happen, they get bad, and then they just get worse, and then that's just the movie. And I was kind of hoping at a certain point in the middle that it would take like some different turn, that maybe like towards the end something a little bit more interesting would happen maybe. And it's definitely more kind of about the experience of it happening. I'm trying not to like spoil anything in the movie.
Kris, Possessor is on your list, right?
There's like some tension there though, where you think, I feel like in Possessor there's some tension where you think like it could go either way. And it never felt that for me at Colored Space. Like toward like about the middle point of the movie when there's a thing that happens to two of the characters that is really, really messed up and terrible. Yeah. And as soon as that happens, you're kind of like, well, it's point of no return now. Like this isn't ending happily.
I can see that. I mean, I'm kind of with you on that. Like what movies that are.
Yeah, so I kind of felt like I was on like cruise control for the second half of this movie. But like I said, I can't disagree with anything you guys said. It's definitely a unique, original experience. It's beautiful to look at. I don't think that people should avoid this movie. I think they should absolutely check it out. So it's definitely a recommendation for me. Didn't quite get high enough up there for me.
I think for me, like, yeah, it gets pretty messed up and the situation becomes dire. But like for some reason, I don't know. The ending's really haunting, which I love. I love movies that kind of end on a kind of ominous note. And it is a horror movie. And horror movies don't always have happy endings. And so that's something that you kind of have to take in stride with the genre. Even if it's great to kind of see a happy ending sometimes, it's a horror movie. And horror movies, traditionally aren't supposed to have happy endings. So not to spoil anything that happened in this movie. But Color Out of Space, it's an experience. And I think you guys should all experience it. So Kris, without further ado, I'm very interested.
Yes.
What is your top horror release of 2020?
I'm going to give this quick because I've got like 12 minutes and then I have to go to work.
I'm sorry, man.
It's okay. Cool. So I'm glad this movie appeared on all of our lists. It was all over the place. It's my number one. It's The Invisible Man. I love that it's kind of, we've come full circle. Casey had it like number 5. You had it as like number 3 or 4. And then I placed it at number 1. So it's all over the place. I just love that this movie, the reason it works is because it's not really about the Invisible Man. It's using these monsters as a metaphor for a bigger story or a more horrific story, which is like stalker abuse, which is really what makes the story scary. It's really what makes the story interesting, intriguing. It makes you root for the main character. And I think as long as these kind of classic monster reboots kind of go the same way, where they tap into what really makes these monsters scary is not what they actually are, it's what they kind of represent, then I think they should definitely be interesting. But yeah, it's well directed, it's well acted. I've seen it twice now this year, and it was fucking great both times. Can't talk much more about how I love The Invisible Man.
And that's available on HBO Max right now for the people that haven't
I have a
seen it.
feeling if I have rewatched it, because the last time I saw it was in March, it may have bumped up a spot or two on this list just because I haven't seen it. Like, it's not fresh in my memory, but it's fresh enough that I remembered how great it was. So I think if I rewatched it, it may have bumped up a spot or two on my list. But fantastic film. I thought 2020 was a great year for horror. Looking back at my list last year, I think Ready or Not was my top pick last year. And I think I had One Cut of the Dead on there, and I'm trying to remember what else was on there. I think Brightburn was on there. I think there were more mainstream releases. Obviously, Halloween Kills was delayed. We didn't get
2.
Yeah, we didn't.
Oh, shit, chapter poo.
Candyman was delayed. We didn't get Godzilla vs. Kong, which we'll probably have to bring Kevin back on here if we cover that.
Yeah, we absolutely need to get Kevin back in.
So, but I thought it was, as far as independent horror, I thought it was a great year. For horror, it was a terrible year otherwise, but I'm very excited to see I'm very optimistic about 2021. Excited to see what's out there. I'm looking forward to Halloween Kills, and Candyman, and there's a bunch of other releases that I just don't know off the top of my head, but I'm very excited for this year. So, all right, guys, it's gonna be a fun time here on Another Miserable Podcast. Hopefully, some cool, good changes and things, and we'll get to that as it comes. But until then, please stay safe and please continue to wear your masks. Let me plug the social media because I forgot to last time. That was my Christmas gift to you. I did not plug the social media for an episode, and I didn't feel like plugging it in with a extra recording. So let me do that really fast. I know Kris has to go. So you can follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube under Another Miserable Podcast. You can follow our personal Twitter accounts. I'm at Earth2Zach, Earth, the number 2, Zach, Z-A-K. Casey, where can they find you on Twitter?
Find me at Lucha Gringo on Twitter. Find me at Lucha Gringo on Letterboxd. Find me as Lucha Gringo on Fortnite. I'm fucking addicted to that game now. Yeah, dude, I'll kill your ass with the fucking man made out of pancakes. What up?
And Kris, where can they find you?
Find me at Twitter at Kris Pistol, Kris with a K and Pistol with a E, and also on Letterboxd under the same name.
And I'm going to plug my letterbox because I just became a pro member because I'm going to try and kind of plug that more.
Oh my god!
So Earth number 2, Zach, the same as my Twitter account. So follow me there on Letterboxd if you want to see, because a lot of the times we don't get to cover everything on this show. We're kind of a variety horror podcast. Sometimes we do recent reviews. Sometimes we do retrospective shows. Sometimes we just talk about Dracula. So we do different things. So we don't always get to cover everything. But if you'd like to see kind of, I do sort of snapshot kind of brief reviews on there generally. Go to check my letterbox out, all of our letterboxes. So, all right, guys, please stay safe, take it easy, continue to wear your masks, and we will see you next time. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.